Are you somebody that's suffering from loneliness, no career prospects, or even boredom? Well, here's why moving to a big city will not solve all of those problems. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, Struggling in NYC here. I hope you like what I did with my hair. I was bored. But in this video, I basically just want to talk about this whole mindset and narrative that by moving to a big city like New York or Chicago or LA, that all of a sudden your life will transform and all your problems will go away, and that you'll be a social butterfly and the center of the universe, and that basically your life will completely turn around. And I just want to say that that could not be further from the truth, especially these days, and that I recommend you stay where you're at if you think that this is going to be the case, because I assure you that the probability of that is likely a no. Okay? And I'll explain why. So as we all know, people have always moved to cities for better career prospects, better jobs, a better life, and better opportunities. Now, traditionally, this has worked because back then it was more possible to get deeply rooted inside a new place. We were able to move from place to place before because, as everyone can relate to this experience, it did not cost an arm and a leg to move somewhere and get established. But now, with the rise of everything, including prices and inflation, it has become much more difficult to root yourself in a new place. And this is no different in moving to a big city. You'd be surprised at the amount of times that I've met people from other states around the country telling me, New York City is not for me. I do not belong here and I am moving back home. And at first I was like, how can this be the case? But then I quickly understood that these people had this idea in their heads of New York City being this belief that people put on social media where everything is easy and glamorous, and that couldn't be further from the truth. For example, if you come here because you're lonely where you're at, let me tell you that you can feel just as lonely in a big city like New York. Why? Because quantity does not equal quality. Some of my most loneliest days on this planet have been when I'm surrounded by other people. And honestly, in New York City, where everyone is always on the go, it's hard to make time for deep social connections. Everyone's always busy, everyone's working multiple jobs, everyone's working on something, and you really won't be the center of attention that you think you will be. And this attitude really has got to stop, because a lot of people here are hustling on a day-to-day basis. And so it's like, if you think that coming to New York City is going to give you an unlimited amount of friends and that you're going to be constantly hanging out, well, I got something to tell you. That's likely not going to be the case. You're in for a surprise. Some of your most loneliest days will be in a city like New York City. And I know you may be surprised. How is it possible that in a city of millions of people, can anyone feel lonely? People here in cities like New York and LA and Chicago are always on the move, always on the go, hustling, whether in school, at work, taking care of family, etc. So this whole prioritizing me to hang out and just let's chill 24/7 and make friends and kumbaya is just not based in reality. And that's why I would say to anyone that moving to a big city does not fix loneliness, and in many cases can even worsen it. Another reason why people move to cities like New York City, Chicago, and LA are because of job opportunities. And yes, admittedly, there are a lot of job opportunities and careers here in cities like New York. But the problem with that is that, like I said in my previous point, quantity does not equal quality. You'd be surprised at how many jobs in New York City, for example, are underpaid. Whether you work in the education system, or you work as a delivery driver, or you work in other professions that are kind of essential, really, you'd be surprised. I myself am a teacher and have to work multiple jobs just to make ends meet, and all my coworkers do as well. So yes, there are a lot of jobs here that you can apply for, but they're likely going to be underpaid and you'll likely be overworked. And with cities like LA and New York City being some of the most expensive places on earth, you're definitely going to need a side gig or a side hustle that provides you with side income to at least be able to survive here and have a budget for entertainment and other things. Having one job in these cities is a luxury that only few people can afford to live off of. I'm definitely not one of those people, and neither are a lot of people that I know and encounter in my day-to-day life. A lot of people, including teachers, nurses, and so forth, work various jobs just to be able to afford life in New York City. So I highly disagree with moving to a city like NY or LA or Chicago just because there's a lot more job opportunities. If you do not know somebody, if you do not have a connection in a company, or if you're not deeply rooted in some form of profession or field here that you know will guarantee you a good paying job, do not move here for better career prospects because, again, yes, there are a lot of jobs you can apply for, but a lot of them are underpaid. And with rent soaring to thousands a month in New York City, you will basically be broke all the time, living paycheck to paycheck. And I know that sounds like a negative, dire image that I'm painting, but it's the reality for many people, including myself. And so it's like constantly you're here trying to catch up to your expenses in New York City. And sometimes I'm like, wow, the money I make in New York City would be fine anywhere else. Hell, in some places I'd even be middle class with the money that I make. But the money that I make in New York City is not enough. It's stretched thin. And so that's why I say that be warned and take this message as a warning to you that moving to a big city in 2025 just for better career prospects is not necessarily a guarantee or even a good idea that I recommend. Another reason why people move to cities is just because of the endless ability to do many things, such as activities and so forth. And like perhaps where you're from, there's not a lot to do. There's not a lot of third spaces, so to speak. And there's really not a lot of ample places to just exist. And in the past, I would have been more inclined to agree with moving to a city for these sorts of reasons. But in 2025, I definitely don't recommend moving to a city for these things because, again, everything has become monetized. If you want to experience something, you have to pay for it. And that's just how it has become. Obviously, some things are still free, like parks and libraries. But in my opinion, why not just go to the park and library in your town or village where you're from? Why spend all this money moving to a new place that you're not even certain you'll like just to visit a library? And what's worse is that since New York City, for example, is so populated, a lot of these free spaces are so packed that you don't even have a place to sit, a place to breathe in, a place to exist, a place to even just lay down without somebody looking at you or being right next to you breathing down your neck. And that's just because of how cramped and dense cities are in America. And so sometimes I would much rather be in a small town where I know the library will likely be empty or will have very few people there because at least I'll have a lot of space to exist and breathe without someone trying to shove me out of the way or take my spot when I'm sitting somewhere. And that is just something that you will encounter here, especially in the summer months. I know everyone loves to romanticize big cities in the summer months, but they can be full of just people everywhere. And, it's difficult to find parking. It's difficult to just exist because you're constantly cramped. And you're constantly cramped in many places here in New York City. The apartments are small, and so are the places where you can just exist for free and roam around. If you want the luxury of having something to yourself, you better be ready to shell out some big bucks because that's essentially how things operate. So my whole point is that if you live outside of a big city and you plan to move to a big city because you think it'll solve all of your issues and problems, whether that be social problems or financial problems, I recommend you stay where you're at and you either figure something out when it comes to becoming an entrepreneur or finding a side gig or income or working on a passion project to help build your skills in terms of what you can do as jobs, and also allows you to meet people in the process, because moving to a big city for such reasons is becoming less and less worth it. And I don't recommend that you move to the city just because you think you'll make tons of new friends or because you'll make more money. Yeah, perhaps you will make more money, but all that money will be spent on things like rent and food and overpriced clothes and just existing in a place where everything costs so much money. And again, yes, you will encounter more people on a day-to-day basis because of how many people exist in a city like NY or LA or Chicago. But again, these will be just transient encounters. It's very difficult to make deep-rooted connections in cities because everyone is always on the go and everyone is always working and hustling and doing something that making time for you is not really a priority. I know for some people it may be difficult to hear this, and some people may not even believe me, and that's fine, and that's your choice. I am just telling you this as somebody that was born and raised in New York City, and I know firsthand experience, and I have seen people just come and go from the city because they have not been able to handle the lifestyle here and the crunch of how much you have to hustle just to get by. Well, that's all I had to say for this video. Thank you so much for watching. What do you think about this topic? Can you relate? Are you also planning to move to a big city? Did you recently move to a big city? Let me know what you think, because I love to hear from you guys. And until next time, bye.